And police in Italy are investigating possible arson after a fire destroyed more than a dozen Tesla vehicles. Elon Musk is calling the incident at a Rome dealership terrorism. This comes as Tesla has been the target of recent protests around the world.
Imagine that one of the largest companies in the US, Walmart, is on the verge of leaving its home market. This is not just rumors or political speculation, but a real threat that could turn the entire structure of American retail upside down and change the prices we are used to seeing in stores. A few months ago, President Donald Trump publicly called on Walmart to eat all the costs associated with rising import tariffs in order to keep prices low for American shoppers. But what really happened? Walmart found itself at the center of an invisible storm caused by a trade war ignited by the US itself. Tariffs designed to protect domestic production have turned into serious problems for the largest retailer, which depends on imported goods from China, Mexico, Vietnam, and other countries. Rising costs, sharp increases in the prices of basic products, and even toys, and supply difficulties are becoming a daily reality for millions of Americans who are looking anxiously at their shopping carts.
I think you're going to remember today, it's going to be a free nation that we're dealing with. We're going to have a very free and beautiful nation. It's going to be Liberation Day in America, and it's going to be a day that hopefully you're going to look back in years to come and you're going to say, you know, he was right. This has turned out to be one of the most important days in the history of our country.
Did you know that the price of a Barbie doll rose by almost 50% in just 1 week? And how much do avocados or bananas, which used to be more affordable, cost now? These are all consequences of tariffs that, according to the administration's plan, were supposed to protect America but have instead hit ordinary people in their pockets. Walmart, a company that has promised low prices for decades, is now forced to make decisions that could lead to thousands of layoffs, department closures, and even a rethinking of its entire business model. Walmart is now actively restructuring, opening new distribution centers in Mexico, introducing robots and artificial intelligence, cutting jobs in the US, and looking for alternative sources of goods. This is not just a reaction to the market, it is a sign of how deep and destructive the economic crisis caused by trade policy is. Walmart is not alone in its problems. Other giants such as Target, Best Buy, Costco, and Home Depot are also facing the need to change their supply chains and prepare for price increases. But only Walmart is voicing the threat of leaving the market, and this is causing real panic in the White House and among economists. After all, if the largest retail chain leaves the country, millions of Americans will be left without their usual goods at affordable prices, and inflation, which is already rising, could skyrocket.
There's been a lot of on and off, some inconsistency.
There's no inconsistency. I'm not like a block that just, I won't delay. It's called flexibility. It's not called inconsistency. It's called flexibility.
Today we'll look at how the trade war, started under the slogan America First, turned into a crisis for American retailers, and why Walmart is on the brink of collapse. We'll tell you what's behind the political statements, how the market is changing, and what American consumers can expect in the coming months. This is a story about a battle of giants, economic gains, and real consequences for each of us. If you are interested in learning the truth about what is happening with Walmart, why simple purchases are becoming more expensive, and what global forces are affecting your wallet, stay with us. This video will reveal everything you won't hear in the news and help you understand who is really winning and who is losing in this trade war. Don't switch channels, there are many important and shocking facts ahead.
Ready? The higher the tariff, the more likely it is that the company will come into the United States and build a factory in the United States so it doesn't have to pay the tariff.
That will take many, as you know, that will take many years.
In fact, I'll tell you, you know, there's another theory is that the tariff, you make it so high, so horrible, so obnoxious that they'll come right away. When I do the 10%, 10% is really, first of all, 10% when you collect it is hundreds of billions of dollars. The numbers that you're talking, all reducing our deficit. But really, so there's two ways of looking at a tariff. You can do it as a money-making instrument, or you can do it as something to get the companies. Now, if you want the companies to come in.
In recent years, the trade war between the United States and China has become one of the most talked about topics in the global economy. It all started with the decisive actions of Donald Trump's administration, which under the slogan America First, began imposing duties and tariffs on a wide range of imported goods, mainly from China. The aim of these measures was to force Chinese companies to raise the prices of their products and thereby make American goods more competitive. However, the results proved to be much more complicated than initially expected. One of the hardest hit was retail giant Walmart, whose business is directly dependent on affordable imported goods from abroad. President Trump has repeatedly called on Walmart's management to eat all the additional costs caused by the new tariffs and not pass them on to consumers. In one interview, he said literally the following: "Walmart must absorb these costs. Otherwise, American consumers will suffer, and that is unacceptable." This phrase quickly became a symbol of misunderstanding of the real situation in the market. Walmart is the largest retail chain, known for its strategy of keeping prices low, and the sudden increase in the cost of purchasing goods has become a real challenge for the company.
After Trump imposed those sweeping 25% tariffs on aluminum and steel imports, the European Union retaliating with tariffs on up to $28 billion of U.S. goods. Trump making it clear this isn't over, vowing to respond in kind with sweeping retaliatory tariffs early next month.
The tariffs imposed by Trump included duties of up to 10 to 25% on a wide range of goods from China and were later extended to other countries such as Mexico, Canada, Vietnam, and Latin America. The main goal was to reduce the trade deficit and bring manufacturing back to the US. However, for Walmart, this meant a sharp increase in the cost of imported goods, from food and household appliances to toys and clothing. The company's supply chain is 70% dependent on imported goods, making it vulnerable to changes in trade policy. Walmart's CFO John David Rainey has publicly stated that prices will inevitably rise and consumers will feel the pinch. According to him, the planned tariffs threaten the stability of supply chains and the company's profitability. The first price hikes began to be recorded in June, and a more sharp rise is expected in July, especially in the basic goods and electronics segments. This situation puts Walmart in a difficult position, as price increases could lead to a loss of customers, while failure to maintain low prices could damage its reputation. Looking deeper into the problem, it is clear that the introduction of tariffs has led to a chain reaction. Higher prices for imported goods have forced Walmart to look for alternative sourcing channels and review its logistics.
With Elon Musk's views on weighing into very much national politics, national elections in Europe. And then on top of that, when you see the backdrop of Tesla upgrading its product line and the impact of them trying to chase more sales at the back end of last year, that means it's short on inventory. It can't necessarily sell as many vehicles or doesn't have as many in stock to sell. So there is that issue there of a confluence of impacts, which means that sales have been falling. Again, the question is how much more that will impact into February as well, given that the back end of last year in 2024, Tesla sales did slip overall.
The company began to cooperate more actively with manufacturers in India, Vietnam, Mexico, and Colombia to reduce its dependence on China. However, this entails additional costs and logistical challenges that cannot be offset immediately. At the same time, American consumers began to notice price increases for everyday goods. For example, the cost of a regular Barbie doll in one of the largest chain stores rose from $10.49 to $14.99. In a week, an increase of almost 50%. Prices for food products such as bananas, avocados, and coffee also jumped by 15 to 20%, which is particularly noticeable for families on a limited budget. Price increases have also been noticeable in the electronics and toy segments, causing discontent and protests among shoppers. In response to these challenges, Walmart began implementing a restructuring strategy in an attempt to maintain its position and ensure competitiveness.
That's a 10. That's a good one.
However, This strategy led to mass layoffs and the closure of some divisions, which dealt a serious blow to jobs and sparked a wave of public discontent. The company's management acknowledged that the trade war had created extreme conditions for them, under which it was virtually impossible to maintain previous price levels without damaging the business. For its part, the Trump administration continued to insist that companies such as Walmart should swallow the increased costs so as not to pass them on to consumers. The U.S. Trade Representative and Secretary of Commerce emphasized that lowering tariffs would weaken America's position in world trade and allow China to dominate the market. Nevertheless, the Walmart situation has become symbolic of how political decisions affect the lives of ordinary Americans, from food prices to the availability of goods and jobs. In the end, tariffs designed to protect American manufacturers caused a major crisis for the country's largest retailer and its customers. Walmart, a symbol of the American economy and affordable prices, is on the verge of leaving the market, which is seen as an alarming sign for the entire economy. This crisis demonstrates how trade policy and global economic changes directly affect each of us and force us to rethink our established ideas about the market and consumption. This is the first part of a story that is just beginning to unfold. How will Walmart and other major retailers deal with the consequences of the tariffs? What strategies and alternatives will they find? And most importantly, how will this affect ordinary Americans whose wallets are already feeling the pinch? We will continue to explore these questions in the next installments. Walmart's response to the growing tariff crisis has become not just a manifestation of corporate strategy, but a real test of strength for the entire American retail industry. Realizing that it was impossible to simply swallow the additional costs, the company's management began to publicly announce inevitable price increases for a number of key products. Chief Financial Officer John David Rainey did not hide his concern, predicting that in the coming months, shoppers would face significant price increases for food, toys, and electronics. This admission came as a shock to many, given Walmart's positioning as a leader in affordable prices and mass service for American families.
We begin with the president's trade war escalating tonight. This evening, the retaliation against the United States, Canada, and the European Union responding quickly, just hours after President Trump's 25% tariff on all steel and aluminum coming into the United States. Canada, the largest supplier of steel to the U.S., slapping new tariffs on $20 billion worth of U.S. goods that are sold in Canada. And the 27 countries of the European Union imposing retaliatory tariffs on up to $28 billion worth of U.S. goods sold in Europe.
The challenge posed by the trade war forced Walmart to rethink its business model. The company took a major step. It said it was ready to possibly leave the U.S. market. The announcement that Walmart could completely shut down its U.S. operations if tariffs continued caused a real stir in political and economic circles. This was not just a threat, but a kind of show of force aimed at attracting the attention of the authorities and prompting a review of tariff policy. Economists warned that such a move by the giant would deal a catastrophic blow to jobs, prices, and economic stability, triggering inflation and a decline in consumer demand. However, this move was not an empty demonstration. Walmart began to actively implement a program to restructure and transform its business. One of the key elements was a large-scale reduction in personnel. It was announced that 1,500 jobs would be cut in the company's technology departments in both the US and internationally. This decision sparked a wave of criticism and concern, as it affected thousands of employees and threatened the future of many families. Official statements emphasized that the cuts were a necessary measure to reduce costs and increase efficiency amid rising import and logistics costs.
After weeks of whiplash, Trump threatening tariffs, imposing some, and walking back others, many Americans are feeling the uncertainty. In Swisher, Iowa, distillery owner Jeff Quint says it's paralyzing.
The bourbon industry is going to be collateral damage in this tariff war. I don't really think there's any way around that.
And he's not alone. Tonight, the majority of Americans, 61%, now say they disapprove of how the president is handling tariffs. 56% say they disapprove of his handling of the economy overall. But the president has dismissed those concerns tonight, saying he has the right to change course.
At the same time, Walmart began actively implementing automation and artificial intelligence. The company announced an ambitious goal of automating 65% of its stores by 2026. This included the use of robots for warehouse operations, intelligent inventory management systems, and even automated checkouts, which would significantly reduce personnel costs and improve customer service speed. The introduction of such technologies not only meets today's challenges, but also lays the foundation for a new type of retail where humans and machines work closely together. Walmart's logistics network has also undergone major changes. To circumvent tariff barriers and optimize deliveries, the company has opened 2 new distribution centers in Mexico with an investment of $6 billion. These centers are equipped with advanced technologies, including artificial intelligence-based management systems and robotic complexes for processing and sorting goods. This shift has enabled Walmart to significantly reduce transportation costs and reduce its dependence on unstable international trade flows. The company has also revised its strategic sourcing, expanding its partnerships with manufacturers in India, Vietnam, Colombia, and Costa Rica. This diversified approach has helped mitigate the impact of tariffs and avoid sharp price spikes for a range of goods, including fruits and basic food items. In addition, Walmart began using innovative solutions in packaging and product components, moving away from high-tariff materials such as aluminum to more affordable alternatives such as fiberglass, which helped reduce product costs and keep prices down.
US President Donald Trump has announced a 25% tariff on all car and light truck imports into the country. It's due to come into effect on April 2nd. Economists and world leaders are warning that it will be a tax on consumers and have a chilling effect on the global economy. But to Americans, Trump paints a rosy picture, predicting that the levies will spur growth.
On the other hand, Walmart's threat to leave the market strengthens its bargaining position and sends a powerful signal to the government. This demonstrates how dependent the US economy and consumers are on this retailer's activities. Continuing the tariff policy without taking into account the interests of major players risks causing serious economic turmoil, including rising inflation, unemployment, and a decline in living standards. Thus, Walmart's reaction and its measures to adapt to the tariff war reflect a deep crisis and the need to find a balance between national trade policy and the realities of the global market. This situation once again highlights that decisions made at the highest level have a direct and tangible impact on the lives of millions of Americans, businesses, and the country's economy as a whole. The future will show how successfully Walmart and other companies will be able to navigate this difficult phase and what lessons the US economy will learn from this challenging story. The US government realizes that Walmart is not just a large retailer, but a strategic player with enormous influence on the national economy. The company employs hundreds of thousands of Americans, ensures the availability of goods throughout the country, and sets pricing standards. Therefore, the threat of Walmart leaving the market is not just a business event, but a potential economic collapse that could lead to a sharp rise in inflation and job losses. The White House is forced to negotiate, seek compromises, and develop plans to mitigate the negative consequences in order to avoid a complete collapse of the retail industry. At the same time, Walmart's influence on other companies in the retail sector cannot be overstated. Other major players Target, Best Buy, Costco, Home Depot, Amazon are closely watching Walmart's position, understanding that its fight against tariffs is shaping the rules of the game for the entire industry. Many of them are not prepared to take such radical measures as exiting the market, but are accelerating the process of diversifying their supply chains and revising their pricing policies. This is leading to an avalanche of cost increases and unpredictable changes in supply chains across the country. Target, with its focus on quality products and the middle class, can afford a more flexible approach to price increases, but its management also recognizes that prolonged tariffs will lead to losings, narrow consumer demand, and slower growth. Best Buy faces the same challenges in the electronics segment, where dependence on China remains high despite attempts to find alternative suppliers. Costco and Home Depot, each in their own niche, are already adapting, but also face limitations in the speed of change and limited opportunities to reduce costs without raising prices. Amazon, thanks to its scale and business diversification, remains the most resilient player, but tariffs have also become a challenge for it. Small sellers on the platform have been particularly hard hit, as they cannot afford to raise prices without losing customers. This is putting pressure on the entire e-commerce segment and threatening the availability of many products for end consumers. Ultimately, all these changes together create an unstable and tense economic situation in which only a few win, and the main burden falls on the shoulders of ordinary Americans. Rising prices, job cuts, and market instability are the real consequences of a policy that the administration initially called Protecting America. Against this backdrop, Walmart is trying to use its power and influence as a means of pressuring the government. The threat of leaving the market, which the company's management has raised before, is becoming an important lever in negotiations to lower tariffs or soften their terms. This is a kind of signal to Washington. Further pressure will lead to catastrophic economic consequences. Experts warn that such dynamics could have serious political consequences. Voters are already beginning to feel the effects of rising prices and job cuts, which could lead to a decline in support for the current administration. This creates the risk of new economic crises and the need to revise trade policy in the shortest possible time. On the other hand, other companies are choosing a path of gradual adaptation, raising prices, seeking alternative suppliers, introducing new technologies, and optimizing their businesses. This approach is less risky but requires time and resources, which also does not guarantee complete success in the face of continuing economic pressure. Thus, the current situation is not just a conflict between trade policy and business, but a serious challenge for the entire US economy. The decisions that will be made in the coming months will determine not only the fate of Walmart and other large retailers, but also the standard of living of millions of Americans, the stability of the labor market, and the country's economic growth prospects. Time will tell whether the parties can find a compromise and avoid major upheavals, or whether the conflict will escalate into a deeper crisis affecting every corner of the US economy and everyday life. In the meantime, Walmart and other retailers continue to fight for survival in the new reality, while consumers prepare for the possibility that the prices and availability of goods they have come to expect may become a thing of the past.